Answer the question, yes or no, mobile advertising sucks.
Peter Farago, I'm the head of marketing for Flurry. We do a series of services for mobile apps. We have about 80,000 companies using us and about 250,000 apps, advertising, analytics. Mobile advertising doesn't suck, but it needs to suck less.
Hi, Pete Bodlong with Retailigence. I head up sales. We are a mobile marketing platform focused on brick and mortar retail. We have a database of over 10 million products across 100,000 locations, and we use that data to power mobile search and display campaigns. And mobile advertising does not suck, and we believe that's because location is very important, and it really improves performance, and we can show how that happens.
My name is Michael Rubin, and I work with YP, formerly ATT Interactive, and YP is a very, very large in-app mobile ad network. Mobile advertising doesn't suck, but it needs some help.
My name's Mike Ghaffary. I'm the Vice President of Business Development at Yelp. We're a fun website and set of mobile apps with 84 million monthly unique users, 33 million reviews. And mobile advertising definitely does not suck. I'm excited to announce today that we've just completed a full rollout of ads in Yelp's mobile apps. So we're really excited about that, and I can tell you all the reasons it doesn't suck.
Okay, so that's an announcement of sorts.
Yeah, this is new news. So we had, and this is interesting because we've obviously had ads on our website for a very long time. Those performed great. We then put ads on our mobile websites, but not our mobile apps yet. And those performed even better than the website ads. And part of the reason for that is you've got better location on the mobile web. But now, as we move to mobile apps, as most people here probably know, you've got the best location and the best geo-targeting in mobile apps. And we hope and expect that those ads will perform even better than the mobile web ads.
Okay, so Pete, you said that you didn't think it sucked, mobile advertising, and you had a performance example that you wanted to give.
Yeah, so what we do is we have a mobile display solution called AdPop, and it combines hyperlocal zip code targeting with dynamic localized creative run on the mobile RTB ad exchanges. And so our campaigns are typically mobile to store campaigns. The objective is to take somebody from their mobile phone or their web experience or their app experience and get them to go into a store.
What's an example? Give us a brand or give us something really.
We're currently running a national hyperlocal campaign for Best Buy right now around all 1,100 locations that they have. And I can't speak specifically to the performance on that campaign, but in general what we see is generally if you're looking at, say, 15 miles to the DMA level, you might get a 0.5% CTR if we're looking at that. If you take it all the way into the 1 to 2 mile radius around a store location, you might see the performance go up above 1%, so almost doubling or more than doubling. We also see engagement improve when we use the localized creative. We couple that in with a microsite that we offer with AdPop, and so we'll see the store locator functionality, the maps, click to call, all of that improve when you present a localized creative to get them to click through and look at the post-click activity.
Okay, anybody else want to provide a concrete example like Pete did of ad performance on your networks or in your...
Yeah, on our network, because we measure secondary click performance based on the ad unit we have, and with that we measure calls, we measure map draws, and we also measure directions. And we see performance anywhere from 5 to 40%, depending on the publisher and the type of local ads and the targeting that's happening within an application.
So when you said 5 to 40% of what?
What that means is a secondary click, those users will click 5 to 40% on one of those attributes. A phone call, they'll make a phone call, they'll actually draw a map draw, and actually generate directions.
And you were talking in the green room about some of the CPM rates that you're seeing. Can you give us a sense of what those are? Yeah, so and we're primarily used almost as a backfill for location inventory because our network is so large. We serve over 1 billion impressions each month, and we're seeing ranges as a backfill anywhere from about $2 to $6 CPMs. Okay, which is dramatically higher than what? Give us a sense of what the averages are, Peter.
Yeah, I mean, the averages we're seeing, so Flurry is doing all kinds of ad units. We don't do deep location stuff for various reasons, and we can get into that. But I agree that each time you add location or some sort of relevance. It's going to increase the performance.
But just give us a sense of what the average is.
60 cents to $1.
Okay, so that's an average.
That's a super blended, I think, across video, what we call re-engagement, what we call display that's driving to downloading an app, which is where we see the bulk of the spending today.
Okay, so 60 cents to $1, and that's all in-app, or does that include mobile web?
This is for us in-app. Yeah, this is a good distinction. So Flurry is in-app. This does not include mobile browsers and excludes search.
Okay, so anybody else want to talk about performance before we get into another area?
Yeah, so taking some of the percentages that Michael mentioned and turning those into hard numbers on Yelp, what that means is in Q3, we did 11 million mobile phone calls generated from our mobile service. So the interesting thing is we just launched mobile ads. We're just announcing that today in-app. But you're already seeing from our organic huge numbers, 11 million mobile calls and then 19 million directions that were initiated. And so if you think about taking those kinds of volumes and driving them through an ad unit, and I think the key is providing an ad unit in local and mobile that really makes sense for the user. So for us, it's non-interruptive advertising, and the relevance, I think, is pretty critical. And putting it right there as part of the search experience, something that's relevant to the user, something they might have looked for anyway, I think that's what really drives performance.
Okay, so in the description of this session, there was a sort of a central paradox. I think Mark alluded to it in announcing this bringing us on stage, that there's a conflict or contradiction between the notion of increased targeting through location and scale, right? And if you're talking about a small business advertiser with 1 or 2 locations, that's not a big deal. But if you're a national brand, you're trying to reach a massive audience, there's some sort of fundamental conflict there. Can any of you speak to how that gets resolved or how that gets addressed? Because obviously everybody wants to unlock the big brand dollars. And some brands are concerned about location, and how do they do that on a scalable level? So just jump in, anybody. How does that central paradox get addressed or resolved? And Mike, obviously on Yelp, that's not as big an issue for you guys, but for the folks that are ad networks, go ahead.
Well, with our network, national retailers primarily use us, basically leveraging location, and they will buy DMAs, they'll buy geofencing, they'll do radius, 5 to 10 miles from their store, they'll buy 1,000 zip codes based on whatever their needs are, and that's really how they're leveraging right now the value of location.
But who's doing that work? I mean, that's a lot of work.
Actually, we're doing it.
So they say we want to make a buy across these geographies and these locations, and you guys you've got all the hamsters and the wheels doing all the work?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So we've actually got a similar situation where even though we're a local company and we're all about local and our advertising products are primarily focused on local, national brands and national retailers want to work with us as well. And so we have display advertising and national brand advertising that way, but we've also got what we call national local, where a huge chain, a large retailer that's got 1,000 locations, at the end of the day, every single one of those is just a local business. And just like any other local business needs to have a great Yelp profile, needs to make sure that their information is up to date, and needs to make sure that when a customer is searching for what they want to target, that their national retailer is coming up in search. So it's actually a very large area for us as well, and we face the same thing. And to your question about who are the hamsters, we've got the hamsters also. They don't have the hamsters, we do.
So what is it like when a national entity comes to you and says we want to target these geographies or these locations? I mean, what is that conversation like?
Yeah, so we've got someone who sits down, works with them, maps out their location. One of the first things is make sure all their data is up to date. If you're a national retailer with thousands of locations, you might be opening and closing businesses every few weeks. Certainly over the course of a year, you've had a few store openings and closings, if not many. So you make sure that's up to date. You make sure they know what's going on with their presence. You've got to say, hey, is there one master password that's going to apply to all of their locations, or are individual store managers empowered to manage on a location-by-location basis? So all of these things are pretty important, and then really getting them to take ownership over their presence online.
So how much? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's. I think there are a few companies. Yelp is in a privileged position. You can think of Facebook, where the advertising is almost an extension of the experience, and you guys pay a lot of homage to making that correct. I think you guys are built on not only a network, operator network, but also kind of a Yellow Pages-like business. So I think for the average app economy participant, a publisher of an app, a maker of an app that has some inventory, they don't have these options to drive revenue. And I would say it's the significant minority of the revenue being generated, even within the advertising spend. And so,
you're saying the significant minority is location.
Location, yeah. I mean, let's name the national brands that can even have footprint across states in the U.S. The Best Buys, the Targets, the Walmarts. I mean, I used to be in CPG. There's only so many. So maybe there's 10. And Yelp and I'd say AT&T Interactive or Y&R are in a very good position to leverage that. Maybe you guys are seeing some deals. The only other verticals I can think of that do pretty well are theatrical or would want to drive that hard are theatrical and maybe automotive who are sending people to dealerships. I'm sure there's a couple other exceptions, but at the end of the day, we're talking about a very small slice of the revenue pie, which is in the mobile app economy, maybe a quarter of all the revenue being generated to begin with.
So a quarter of all the revenue being generated in mobile apps has some geo-targeted element?
Well, I'm just saying that the revenue. So we think there's in 2012 maybe there'll be close to $10 billion worldwide generated for app makers, and maybe about 70% or so of that will be either premium consumers pay, and this is all apps again. Consumers pay for the app up front, $2 or $1, or they drive in-app purchase. That's the revenue model that cranks because everybody's payment enabled, the credit card's associated with it, and then you have some advertising. A lot of the game guys don't want to do advertising; they can make more money. That's 40% of the usership right there, the time spent. So I'm saying that. Just if you kind of run through the numbers of the behavior of the app-using audience, what categories they use, what revenue models those publishers favor, advertising is already in the minority. And when I think about the number of advertisers who can even muster the kind of campaigns these guys can satisfy.
So you're sort of saying the addressable market for location-based advertising is a slice of a slice.
That's correct.
Okay, so you're the skeptic on the on the panel. All right,
but not that it won't growing quickly though.
On a small base.
Do you want to elaborate?
Well, actually, I was going to say Mike was bringing back some bad memories because I used to sell those local products at Yelp before I joined Retailigence.
He was a Yelper.
Yes. And, one of the things I heard there was that these national advertisers that we sold local to wanted to do zip code targeting. Back then, we couldn't do it. They can do it now. But when I got to Retailigence and I saw what we could do with our product database and our local store database, the zip code targeting really came back to the fore, and that's why we designed it to be zip code targeted, so we didn't have to deal with PII and still be able to get scale from the ad exchanges through our DSP partners. And so we're able to get scale on campaigns for Best Buy, Radio Shack, Timberland, Tory Burch, and many others we're working with right now.
But also on iOS, where it's prohibited to collect location. For the majority of apps, they don't have to build.
We get past zip code from the publisher. They may collect it from reg data. They may infer it from Wi-Fi IP. It's not all accurate, but some of it's more accurate than run a site.
Right.
So we aggregate it all together. We target by that, and we see improvement in performance when we use that data, and we're able to sell it, for $2 to $4 CPMs.
But let me jump in here. So I think to Peter's point, you're right. If you've got an app that has nothing to do with location, and then you're trying to do geo-targeted ads, you're going to find it more difficult. I
don't think you can play in the space, frankly.
Yeah, I think that's especially on iOS. I think it's harder. But taking a step back, you were talking about growing off a small base. Oyster pegs online to offline advertising. People looking online or on their mobile device and then making a purchase decision offline in the U.S. at $1 trillion and growing rapidly. And you've got to believe. I think there's a Kelsey estimate that mobile local advertising is going to go from somewhere in the $500 million to $5 or $6 billion over a 5-year period. So Greg can get us the exact numbers. But
okay, go ahead, keep going.
But the idea is, I think you're right. I think a lot of the growth we're going to see is going to be in people who are close to where someone's making that decision. Hey, I want to go spend some money offline. I want to go spend money in local business, which is the vast majority of commerce in this country and will continue to be, by an order of magnitude larger than what people are spending on buying apps, which is also a growing area. And so I think as you see people making those decisions on the web and on their mobile devices, advertising is going to continue to grow the way it has been and be pretty significant.
So, Pete, I want to just focus on something that you alluded to, product-oriented ads, right? Not retailers, but CPG product-specific ads. So you drive people into stores to buy specific products. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, can you give us an example of one of those ads?
Well, I mean, we're running a lot of campaigns for retailers right now, and they're trying to get folks into their stores. But I think you're talking more about a CPG or a brand example.
Yeah, that's right.
One of the campaigns I'm working on right now, and this might hit one of the points that will come up about ROI, but is using a brand that's carried at Best Buy. We have a partnership now where we can put a coupon into the ad or announce the offer. Then on the landing page, dynamically populate a single-use redemption code that's already integrated at the POS at Best Buy and track the effectiveness of the advertising all the way into the store location.
Can you name a brand, or?
I can't name it right now because it's not done, but it's a major phone brand. Let's put it that way. And it's like $20 off a handset. You come in, you get that $20 when you bring this mobile coupon in with you. And it's
so in addition to retailers and others with a national footprint, there conceivably product sellers, CPG folks might be interested in this kind of advertising if it can be done at scale.
I mean, I used a general brand example like a phone. A phone is obviously a lot different than CPG, but we do work with brands too. And that trackability and finding out the effectiveness of the advertising into the store location is very important to them.
Well, I was shown an ad at lunch from Jaywire that showed me a Johnson baby shampoo ad, and it showed locations in New York, Duane Reade and CVS, where you could actually buy the product. So that was an example.
Yeah, we had this on Yelp. I believe it was Blue Moon ran a campaign where they showed you the places that serve Blue Moon on Yelp, and they'd show that in their creative. So they were getting custom creative on the impressions, showing the location and the Yelp rating. So you can start to see really interesting kind of custom ads as well.
Okay, so Michael, you need to speak up more because you're being pretty quiet. But yeah, right.
Sure. Should we talk about the challenges?
Exactly,
yeah.
Precisely. Good segue.
Yeah. So
all right. So the question is, so we've got this notion that these ads may perform better, and there's even premium. There's revenue associated with these. These are premium ads, notwithstanding the limited demand, perhaps. But there are myriad challenges. I mean, not with just this sort of paradox issue, but what are the central problems or challenges now that brands or enterprises face in trying to do national, local campaigns?
Well, the biggest challenge for location to be really successful has to do with the publishers and the networks that kind of run their ad serving, and it's quality of location. Because candidly, there's inferior location that's being passed. Too much of it is being passed based on the IP from the carriers. And what that means is you're here in San Francisco, but the IP and the carrier can be in St. Louis or Denver or whatever, so you're basically getting poor location. And until that's solved, you'll have an inferior level of location, which will diminish the value of location. Because inevitably what happens is somebody's on their phone and they're saying, why am I getting ads from Chicago when I'm here in San Francisco?
Well, I was at lunch. I was looking at a particular app, and I was seeing ads for businesses in Long Beach, California.
Right.
So, and people were speculating that was a proxy server somewhere that was doing that.
Right, and also part of the challenge too. A percentage of location is done through zip code, through registration, and if you're on Pandora and you live in Los Angeles, and that's what you put your zip code. So when you travel anywhere, you're just going to get ads served from Los Angeles because that's where you're registered from.
Okay, so lat long. There are some folks that say we can deliver a lat long and give you really super precise location. For ad targeting purposes, and mostly that's a BS claim. Agree?
I wouldn't say it's a BS. It exists. I mean, there's 3 levels of lat long location. You can do it within like 300 feet, 3 miles, and 10 miles. And depending on the quality of that lat long signal will determine the proximity and the effectiveness of that location. So it's really up to the publishers.
So Peter, can you chime in on that?
Yeah,
on the quality of the lat long claims.
No, I think it was well described, and if GPS is able to be collected because it's the right kind of app, and therefore say Apple is allowing them to do so, then it's much more precise. Otherwise, you're pulling it from headers off radio towers, and that's relatively accurate, but not to the point where I think you can get meaningful. I think that's the second. You were talking about the second. And then, of course, if it's self-reported reg, of course, you're going to have all kinds of problems. I would also add to that, not only is perhaps on iOS is it not as open field for publishers to have that kind of play, because Apple prohibits the collection of geo-data just for the heck of it. But also there's legitimate privacy concerns because the device is perceived as so personal. So, on the one hand, I may not want, if I'm in Chicago, I may not want ads from LA, but if I'm in San Francisco, I may not want ads that say I'm in San Francisco because, hey man, how'd you figure that out? So there's not only a consumer creep factor, but there's also FTC who just put out a report about, for example, important child safety, and we have to pay attention to proper privacy disclosures, transparency, choice, all that stuff as well.
Also, publishers can do a better job just on auto-detecting your locations, so you don't have to just manually do it. They should know.
Privacy is going to be, I think, a major issue in 2013. I think we're going to see a lot of stuff around privacy come down. But apropos of that report that came out yesterday on child disclosures and child safety and app publishing,
right.
They had an interesting chart in there, which was of the 800 apps, 59% passed information to third parties, mostly ad networks. And of that 59%, something like 3% delivered location data. So a very tiny sliver, not that that's representative of the whole universe of apps or mobile web, but a very tiny sliver were passing location data onto ad networks. To your earlier point, I think, Peter.
About addressable market, let's say, yeah.
And so that's just a sort of in the way of challenges. Any other obstacles or challenges you guys want to identify as we sort of have 9 minutes left to go? I mean, is that correct, timekeepers? What am I supposed to be looking at?
2 minutes.
Oh, 2 minutes. How can you say 2 minutes? I started this right when we got up here. All right.
We started late.
We're going to condense 9 minutes into 2 minutes. All right, go ahead. You're playing fast and loose with the time. Go ahead. Any other problems that are major issues that we need to address here?
This is not a problem, but all these issues so far, it all depends on who's the publisher, right? These are very publisher specific. So if you can create a service like a Yelp or another service where you've got people actually looking for local businesses, all these problems are gone, right? Then there's no creep factor. They know that they're giving you their location precisely because they want you to serve up a useful local business. And the better you can do that and the better you can be about location, the better experience you can deliver. So it's all about relevance and the user experience.
Well, obviously, most of the impressions are on the display side, so not everybody's in that privileged position.
Yeah, it depends on.
Go ahead.
Another challenge, I mean, candidly, there is too much supply. So
by supply, you mean ad impressions.
Too many available impressions.
Yeah.
So this would be kind of unique if publishers started reducing the amount of inventory that they made available for advertising.
Artificial scarcity.
Exactly.
Okay. Pete, you want to say anything about
Well,
the
I mean, we buy zip code inventory, so first we want more of that, and we want it to be accurate. So if those two things can be solved, we're all good.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about ROI as kind of the penultimate subject here. So you alluded to that earlier, Pete, about proving ROI. One of the big challenges for mobile advertising generically is I can't see the ROI from my ad buy, so I can't justify moving budget into mobile, right? Even though we know sort of anecdotally it works.
Or I want a CPA model.
Right. Okay. So can you guys talk about attribution and ROI in 30 seconds?
I'd say just, we largely have a CPI, network cost per install. It's been driven a lot by the gaming industry who can drive rewarded installs. I think we're all moving away from that, but those guys are right side up in the business model. Their cost of acquisition is higher than, or the lifetime value of the consumer is higher than the cost of acquisition. So we see it there. We are seeing a lot of DR as well. The Match.coms, those kinds of companies coming in, the Netflix, the heavy DR spenders coming in very heavily now. And so that sucks up some of that supply perhaps for location that could be allocated to location. But that's where we see the money being spent from our.
Anybody want to say anything more about mobile ROI, how to track it, attribution?
For Yelp, we had those stats, 11 million mobile calls, 19 million mobile directions. That's a very easy way to prove advertiser ROI. They can just log in and see, I ran this many ads, I got this many calls, I got this many directions. So it's actually pretty straightforward. When you start going out to ad networks, it gets harder sometimes.
We measure calls because a lot of our advertisers have unique call tracking numbers, so we can measure calls, we can measure durations of calls, and then working with call centers, we actually see what kind of conversions they do. We look at clicks, we generate millions and millions of clicks for our local advertisers. So there is interaction.
Okay, so final thing, our time is up, unfortunately. So a year from now, we're invited back and we have more time to talk next time. And what are we talking about? What has been solved? What has not yet been solved in a year or 18 months from now around location-based advertising or mobile advertising in general? This is your sort of final statement. You can answer the question or say anything else that you want to. Okay, Mike, you start.
I would say I think we're just at the tip of the relevance piece, and so you're going to see more and more. It sounds like a contradiction, but delighting users with their advertisements and their local and mobile advertisements, and giving them that aha moment where they say, "Wow, I was really actually looking for one of these, and now I found it thanks to this ad." And I think we're on the cusp of hitting that, and we're going to be talking about making it even better.
Right now, location's more of a commodity. A year from now, ideally, third-party targeting is now incorporated on a larger scale and more efficient, which helps increase the value that we can offer for advertisers.
Yeah, I think we're going to reverse the order of the panel. We won't talk about why and is it important. Location will be acknowledged and an important piece of the equation. And like you said, audience will be something we'll be then talking about, combining with it, and then also looking at ROI and how that's proving out.
Yeah, I think we've written a lot about how this is the fastest adopted consumer technology in history of mankind, faster than electricity, stoves, microwaves, anything you think of. It's also the most personal device. It's a supercomputer in your pocket that's connected to the cloud. And so you have all these opportunities to close the gap between how personal and powerful and pervasive this thing is with a lot more big data and targeting. So I think we're going to you mentioned third party, but I think location's a feature. And I think that an important feature that drives a lot of CPMs, but at the end of the day, we're talking about audience, personas, usage, along with the other segmentation variables that marketers and publishers look at.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And away we go.